Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and finally some more wilds. Today I'm talking more weird, useful, or just interesting things you might not have known about. So with no more time wasted, let's begin. We kick today's video off with a fun look at the concept art book. It's been out since the game's launched, people have been posting the digital version. There's quite a few things to show off and look at, but I just want to highlight a couple things in particular, like Athos here. And to be fair, they're very cool design for a palico. A unique kind of greatsword for a palico. The eye scar, definitely one of the coolest palicos in the series. But if we take a look at them in the concept art, you'll see, well, a familiar design. We see the concept of that like greatsword in play, but then this other version that shows it almost transformed for the boomerang purposes. The most interesting thing here in this version of the design is obviously the crossbow. That's so cool, and I'm completely unaware of Athos ever using a crossbow. I mean, maybe there's a chance I've missed it, but I'm pretty sure this is just in the concept art, right? But if I'm wrong, I would love to know it. But there you go, 15th weapon. Palico crossbow. Another one that I want to look at in particular though is the awesome concept art for Chatacabra, of which there's quite a few different images, but it's the most expressive one of the lot. You get a look at the sticky nature of the tongue, or, really cutely, Chatter carefully testing the taste of a mushroom, seemingly fearful at the same time that it might be spicy, or poisonous, or even shock him based on probably some bad past experiences, the poor guy. I just really like how silly they made him and expressive here, and I think this kind of thing, as subtle as it was, did come across in the real version in its own way. He's definitely a very beloved monster, and my favourite first monster, I think, in general. But the next thing I want to look at is the Balahara concept art, which shows this really cool detail. The eyes that line the mouth. They show up in a couple of the images. It's a bit hard to spot them, but they're in even the small funny one. This was actually brought up by a commenter on one of these things videos that I've been meaning to look into. So thank you to The Dry Bones for letting me know about this. And yeah, this actually made it into the real Balahara we have today. If you put the Balahara to sleep, then you can take a look at the mouth, and in the sort of meaty part of it, you can get a look at those little blue clam-like eyes that run around in a pattern like a border on the inside there. If you do fully hunt it and slay it, then you can get a proper look in the mouth as it kind of opens up as it's laying there, which is helpful. And yes, you can see those blue eyes running around the length of each of the 3 sections. This is like a really specific detail that's obviously represented in the concept art, but is a tiny thing that in the middle of combat and fighting a Balahara normally, it's something I've just never seen. It makes me wonder what other tiny interesting details are there with other monsters. There's nothing I want to say too in specific for the Ray Dow one. This just looks absolutely incredible. One of the coolest designs, and as an Apex monster and not like the actual flagship of the game, my brain still associates Ray Dow as the flagship of Wilds. This concept art just does it for me. But the last thing I want to show you here is actually this. Concept art of specifically Geladron. I just love how much attention they gave him, so round and plump and colourful. I think they knew he'd be a favourite too. I remember when they were showing the trailers and we saw Oilwell Basin for the first time, everyone immediately was zooming in on this guy, calling him like Dodo Gamma's son or something. But you can check him out here with this other small monster being squished by the club head, like a plushie that's just gonna reform instantly. But yeah, if you haven't looked at the digital art book, then I recommend you do. A lot of cute stuff in there. Next, I want to reference a little detail with Akuma here. I'm totally the real one, my skin looks normal. As you do the Akuma questline with him with a Street Fighter collab, he disappears. He's no longer in that place by Camp 14 in the Oilwell Basin. Is he just gone from the game? No, as it turns out. I found him standing at the entrance of Zoshia's nest, at the very bottom of Wyvria, talking about how he can feel the power of this place and how he wants to get in there and face whatever it is. And it's a shame because it'd be really cool if he invaded the Zoshia hunt at times, maybe for a small period or something. Kind of reminding me of the idea of, the different Elder Dragons that came in the All-Mother Nawa fight back in Rise. Maybe he just comes in briefly, lands an offset and a knockdown, and then leaves. That'd be really cool. But at very least, the point here is that he's not gone after the quest, as it turns out. So even though he disappears, you can find him in a bunch of places around the locales, just kind of doing some interesting things. I've seen sightings of him with Rover at his little camp, just hanging out, punching rocks for some training, or doing different exercises generally around the Oilwell Basin. I think it's pretty cool. You can just surprisingly find him. And it definitely makes him seem a little bit more normal and less crazy than he clearly is. If you do rest, he leaves one location and goes to another, so do that and find all his spots if you can. I'm really glad this collab event was a lot more than we expected for a Street Fighter one. The mechanics of playing as Akuma were incredible, but I like that he's a character that hangs around for a while. So something that we've done over the last couple episodes is take a look at some item descriptions, the little lore about them. If you look at an armor piece and then go through, you can find actually a little description that has lore sometimes. So looking at the Ray Dow set with the Gamma, it actually references that this is from the Gamma, the dignity of the Arch-Tempered. But some of them do have unique lines. Like the Akuma set, we have the headpiece with the beads, worn by a demon of combat who burns to become the ultimate master of the fist, who bears the weight of heaven on his back. Well, since we've kind of referenced it a couple times, I had a couple comments that were saying you should look at the arkveld stuff, and it is interesting. And if you look at the descriptions of the two different versions, there's base, arkveld, and then guardian, they're quite different. So let's look at arkveld's normal version, a helmet made from arkveld spoils. The design was worn by a knight-errant who reshaped the world. The knight fearlessly broke the will of every adversary. Legions 100,000 strong succumbed before the knight. Until the kingdom was restored, the knight bowed before no hardship. No bloody war, no bitter loss could halt the knight's march to victory. Who the hell is it talking about? Is it referencing like an OG time with arkveld when they weren't going extinct? Maybe someone who really knows the old lore of Monster Hunter could tell us more. But then we have the Guardian arkveld version, right? So let's look at the helmet. A host of heightened senses make up for the narrow view. It beckons forth a shudder of indescribable power. This reminds me of like the descriptions of Fatalis and Xochitl gear now. Instills the desire to tear at friend and foe alike. Yeah, very much like Fatalis. The chains writhe subtly, eager to ensnare prey. Their power grows with each relentless, hungry step. This is the big difference between a regular arkveld being more of a natural creature and then the Guardian version just being this like absolute predator, lost to their own hunger, which is sadly how that monster story goes. But yeah, let me know what you know about this knight, if anything. Right, next up I have a quick one that comes from a commenter, a bit of advice from the user /4141, which is, at this point, you might have enough resources to have a second copy of the same weapon. Here's just an example case. I've got a longsword here, obviously the standard artian meta, right? And then just for the sake of it, I've equipped the Xochitl one, since it's one of the best ones you have outside of artian. And in the case of longsword, I can do something pretty handy, which is have almost the same setup with the decorations. I might not have a second razor sharp handicraft setup, sadly, but you know, this is almost as good really. So the idea is simple. Carry around a copy of the weapon that you're using, decorations as well, and then whenever you need or want to, you can swap between the two at will super fast. This will restore the sharpness of your weapon technically because the one you swap to is unused. You can completely avoid having to sharpen for a hunt, or at very least extend the duration of your output without having to stop to sharpen. And then when the monster swaps zones, then you can sharpen, I guess. I thought it was an interesting trick because at this point in the game, we definitely do have the resources to potentially have a second weapon. But the problem is that obviously artian meta and the RNG there might say otherwise. But it's something to think about. And I like the idea of swapping to a Xochitl weapon for the sake of variety, to avoid having to sharpen. Next though, I want to talk about probably the next Arch-Tempered monster that's coming to the game. We've had it confirmed in the director's letter that the next title update, in Title Update 2, we're going to have the next AT monster. Not a surprise. And based on who it was originally, AT Ray, we figure they're going to do AT of the Apex Predators, at least initially. So it's going to be either duna, dahaad, or of course udra. And based on the seasons, I would imagine it's going to be a summery vibe with the summer theme that's about to hit. Duna would fit that perfectly. And we've got Lagiacrus coming in. Duna's the apex of this region, and Lagiacrus is kind of overshadowing her a bit. So an Arch-Tempered version, one that's maybe fought and survived against Lagiacrus, maybe won, that'd be a really cool idea. So it's very likely it's Duna, that's our theory at least. So here's just a couple of interesting things about Duna for the fun of it. There was this post quite a bit ago on Twitter by the user Karasu Agent, who wrote something quite funny. There he is, Tuna-san swimming underwater. So powerful. With this cute shot of what you can pass through an underwater area in the Scarlet Forest. If you get very lucky, you can also see swimming creatures going underwater there. So not only can you see Duna doing that, but you know, Mizutsune as well. And probably we'll see Lagiacrus under here in the future. Here's another funny one from Reddit by the Reddit user Raki Draken. They were just doing some fishing in Area 17, which, you know, obviously is where Duna can show up. And at the exact moment that they were about to reel in a fish, Duna comes slamming through. How many points do you think that one's worth? Just be wary where you fish, I guess. And finally, this cool post from Kino Creations, who nearer to the release of the game was doing some fishing themselves. And as Duna went underwater to leave the locale, it does this unique whale call. I don't know, I think Duna's quite cool, but she feels like she's like the least appreciated of the 4 apexes. It's nice to see some little fun stuff here. Next up, just a fun quick one. Did you know that the seikret can have unique animations based on the type of ground? At very least, we see this when we take the seikret to some lava and stand in it. Kind of horrible to do, wouldn't recommend it, but obviously it's got burning feet when standing on lava, like stepping on hot cement or something. I definitely felt bad doing this, but it is a unique animation. And it made me think, I wonder where else the seikret does this kind of thing. So I took it to the raid down nest, because if you're unaware, your hunter has unique walking and running animations while running through that rough and rocky terrain, which certainly makes sense. Weirdly though, the seikret doesn't care at all. It's just stood there fine. If you mount it and walk slow or run, it doesn't have unique animations. Kind of a shame. But I imagine that there'll be other places where the seikret at least does something unique. So if you know any, let me know. Next up, one that I've been meaning to show in this series for quite a while, and it's the fact that some of the NPCs that join you at the start of it all actually progress with their armor set. So we can see here with Olivia, her armor set has indeed changed, and you may have noticed this change yourself. It looks like she's wearing gore magala's legs and gloves in particular, but then keeping the kind of core base of her armor set. Her character is pretty unique to that, just like Athos, but it's pretty cool. So at a certain point in the story, they literally change their equipment. And this seems to happen with the lower level ones that aren't directly part of the story, but do show up while you're going through it. So for example, we have Griffin here. He is now wearing the Congalala armor set rather than a generic starting one, which is pretty cool. It's a kind of mix of the two, kind of like what we saw with Olivia, I suppose. So you can also see this with Rosso as well. He's wearing the Cumatrice armor set, after also starting with a kind of more generic armor set to begin with. It's a subtle thing, but yeah, it's nice to see how the other hunters also progress alongside you, even if not as extreme as the main character with plot armor. Okay, for the end of the episode then, there's something I want to talk about that I might just be unaware of and you guys already know about, but it's been posted on Reddit and I had a look at it. Basically, sometimes here in the hub at night, behind the diva, a kind of red moon can appear. Now, I've looked at this skybox quite a few times, and I've just never noticed that. And obviously it's not here at this moment. So let's take a look at the recent Reddit post about it. The post was by Rudoka, who highlighted the fact that there was a red moon behind Diva, asking, was the moon always red like that? It certainly looks ominous, and makes you wonder, what does it bode? It moves across the sky at like a reasonable pace to say it's a moon, but I suppose the night's pretty quick in this game. And some people have some fun, different theories. Like it started to happen the day Akuma got added, but a lot of people are hoping it has some sort of bigger implication for Monster Hunter. It's not the first time that Monster Hunter has done something with a red moon. But you know, some people claimed in the comments of this post that the red moons have been on the map infrequently and have been since the start of the game. Since it can just show up when the Diva was added with the hub and it appears behind her, people started to connect it to her. But from these claims, it sounds like the red moon can just happen as part of the game. But I do hope they do something with it. And somehow I've just never seen it myself. So what do you guys think? But there you have it. Just some lighter stuff today as we're pretty far into the base game at this point. But if you guys do have anything you'd like to add to today's topics, or maybe make a suggestion for the series, then you can let us know in the comments. We have Title Update 2 coming very soon though to look forward to. And with that, hopefully even more interesting things to look at with what's added. Until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.